All right, pleased to be joined by golf course architect Mr. Jeff Brauer. He will dive into it in a minute. He co-designed Wild Wing Plantation here in Myrtle Beach. So, Mr. Brauer, how you doing today?
Well, too early to tell, but I'm sure it'll be a good one. We're heading to the weekend.
Good deal. Yeah, thanks for joining me. It's pretty early. You're out in Texas, huh?
Yeah. I moved to Dallas, seek fame and fortune about 30 years ago. So came up a little short on both fronts, but yes, here I am in Dallas.
Oh, very good. Cool. Well, have you ever done any podcasts before?
I have done some over the years, sure.
Oh, cool. Well, I kind of just want to start from the beginning, and then we'll move towards Wild Wing in a little bit. But how did you kind of get introduced to golf, and maybe a couple early memories around golf?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Chicago, and my next door neighbors just happened to be members of Medina. And so at age 12, we snuck out on a Monday and played number three. So that was the first course I ever played, kind of hacked it around. And went back to the clubhouse, stole all their placemats that had all the course layouts, and told my dad that night I was going to be a golf course architect. So
Oh, really? Right away? You wanted to get into it right away?
I had sort of a design personality. Uh, I knew I was probably going to design something. I just had no idea about golf until that moment. So
Or were you? How did you kind of transit? Were you interested in like construction or landscaping, or how did that kind of how walk us through how you went from golf to straight away to architecture?
well, like I said, my dad used to get his dry cleaning done, and he had these cardboard sheets, and he'd leave them in a drawer for my brother and I. I mean, so I was always a doodler. I remember doing city plans, remember doing houses. Just always interested in how things came together in drawing. So, like I say, when I played golf, that was it. It hit me like a ton of bricks. And I think you'll find almost every other architect in the business will have a similar story. Superintendents too, except they just kind of angled their interests a different direction.
Yeah, well, did you reach like a pretty high level golfing wise, or were you kind of an average player?
Pretty much an average player, which I always felt it helped my design. And the other side was starting at Medina. That my dad couldn't afford a country club, so I was always focused on the public side and average players, but giving them kind of an experience that you know, without having to join the private club. So I think the average player thing, I always talk about maybe Nicholas designing around his game. I think everybody does to a certain degree, but I think whatever success I had, not looking to design necessarily the hardest courses, was part of my formula for whatever success I had.
I love that. I love a little playability, but man, Medina's a yeah great place to kind of learn the game and architecture. Who was the course designer for Medina number three? It's a big name, isn't it?
Well, at the time was Tom Bendelow, although there's a lot of different history. Someone came out with a Medina history, which I have somewhere. The layout you see now is Harry Collis. Well, the layouts you see now are Reese Jones and Tom Doak, but the routing. It's actually a pretty interesting history. It kind of started out as a real estate flip. Number three was supposed to be like an executive course, and then somebody shot a Lighthouse Harry Cooper or whatever shot a big score, and they tore out the plans for all the houses and turned number three into one of the hardest courses in the world.
Yeah, it's having what is it? The President's Cup next year? I know it's having an event soon, right?
Yeah, I don't keep track of that as well as I should, but
I think so. I think it's having the President's Cup. Well, cool, good stuff. Well, kind of what was your first course design? And did you move into it like right after college, or how'd that go?
yeah, I started as an apprentice right after college. In fact, after my epiphany, somehow, just by chance, the American Society of Golf Course Architects had moved their headquarters to Chicago. My dad saw that. He wrote and got all this literature, including a membership list, and Killian and Nugent happened to be one suburb over. So I went in to see them, bought my first suit, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and while they wouldn't give me a job in high school, they sort of set the path, landscape architecture in college, work maintenance crews, landscape crews. And then when I, got out of college, they felt obligated to hire me. So
Cool. What was your, do you remember which one you've designed like around 50 courses? Is that right?
yeah, if you count total blowouts where we changed the routing, I think I hit 60. I mean, some of those were 9-hole courses and whatever, but about 50 regulation 18-hole courses. So,
Cool. Do you remember your very first one?
well, with Killian and Nugent, I came on board when they were actually doing Kemper Lakes, which hosted the 1989 PGA right after I left them and went down to Dallas. Then of course on my own, I did Brookstone in Atlanta was probably my first commission, also with Larry Nelson. I mean, his agent happened to live here in Dallas, and I think he was trying to avoid a long distance phone call when Larry got an offer to design a course and needed some help. Uh, I like to say I got my first job. I was actually probably dozing off in my chair. New business, there's not always a lot of work right off the bat, and then this phone call
Uh,
comes in and sort of changes the course of the career.
cool. Well, you kind of touched on it there, Larry Nelson. How did you, he was just looking to get into golf course architecture and needed a partner, or how did you get connected with him?
Yeah, well, like I say, the agent made the call. Then I went over to meet Larry in Atlanta. It seemed like we hit it off okay. Yeah, I was never an employee with Larry. I think most of these relationships, aside from Nicholas and whatever, are sort of subcontract arrangements. And that's how I always worked with Larry. We did a couple more around Atlanta, and then we got the opportunity to do, let's see, Opryland in Nashville, now called, I think, Gaylord Springs, and then Wild Wing was, I think, well, we had one in Asia too, and then Wild Wing was like our fifth course together.
Fifth one, okay. Well, that opened in 1993. So, how long, just give us an idea, how long does it take to design a course? Is it 2 years or around there? Or?
Yeah, it can vary. In those days, there was a real push on environmental permitting, and a lot of new rules were coming in, and uh, agencies didn't necessarily know how to enforce them. So back in those days, it was very hard. Now, I mean, there's still the same environmental permitting. It's sort of standardized, and we know what we're dealing with. So uh, without the permits, I could probably get the plans done in 3, 4 months. Uh, with the permits, it's taken as long as 2 years.
Yeah, I understand that. Like our homeowners association, it takes us 8 months to approve a pergola. So, yeah, permits and stuff like that. I could see that slowing it down.
Don't get me
Well,
started on HOAs. I've had a few of my own problems with them. I think
it's cr-
everybody has.
it's crazy, but yeah. So Wild Wing, I've said it even before I started this channel, and it's been pretty much one of my top two or three favorites in the area. Just a great design, great features. The greens are ton of fun. A lot of slope. There's a double green, some big wide fairways. I'm not the most accurate off the tee, so I love the wide fairways. But I think when it was first designed, there was like four courses there. Is that right?
Yeah, and the first two were by Willard Bird, the late Willard Bird now, and he was very traditional architect. And so the Japanese owner of Wild Wing, although he purportedly didn't speak a whole lot of English, our design brief was more frou-frou. So he wanted,
What is
sort of,
that exactly?
well, I mean, a lot of the earthworks, the big mounding. I mean, we didn't get into any waterfalls, but he just wanted to be big and bold, not traditional, because he felt that was kind of fit the Myrtle Beach, shtick, if you want to call it that, the persona. So, I think it fits Myrtle Beach perfectly.
Yeah, it's a great course. So you were just involved with the Avocet course, is that right? That was the only one you worked on there?
Yeah, we thought we might get the fourth one, the Falcon. They ended up going with Reese Jones there too. So
Okay. Well, yours is the only one that stood the time. Those other three are closed. They have a 9 hole now that's, I think it's like a combination of a couple of them. They call it the Hummingbird Nine. It's a par
right.
34, but man, the Avocet is a great course. So is there anything that you remember or sticks out from you about the design process or any nuggets about, the actual design?
Yeah, after you called, yeah, several came to mind. Of course, the first one is, of course, you mentioned they closed the Reese Jones course, and you can believe whenever I see him, I don't let him forget that. But he almost hates to see me coming, but he's always very gracious, when I approach him. I mean, we're good friends, but again, with the owner not speaking a lot of English, the more frou-frou, which was one of the more unique design, directions we were given. But again, it was, you mentioned the double green on 6 and 17, so we're touring the course one day during construction, and he said his interpreter said, yeah, he thinks the cart path ought to be on the right side of this hole, and I kind of commented, well, if we did that, we'd have to tunnel it under the green, and without an interpretation, the owner laughed, so I knew he spoke more English than we gave him credit for after that.
Yeah, because if you went down the right of six, you'd be crossing over 17 green. Yeah, that's uh that's funny, man. And then you got the back nine. I've always said the back nine's one of the best nines, not only here but around the. I'm sure you hadn't been back in a while, but there's really no homes. There's no condos. It's just out in the nature and the wetlands, the trees around you. It's got the drivable par 4 14. 15's a great par 5, and then three tough closing stretch holes there. What a course. I mean, how much did Larry, like, how was y'all's dynamic? Was some of the ideas his and yours, or you just bouncing stuff back and forth, I guess?
Yeah, again, with the exception of a few who built their firms, like Jack Nicklaus is really involved. Ben Crenshaw is really involved. Mostly they want these guys for the signature, and so basically, I did go to his house a few times, and we would go over the plans, and he made a few field visits, but it was I'd definitely say you'd call him, and very typical of tour pros, an editor of the design. And as an average golfer, like we talked about earlier, I've worked with a couple other pros. I worked with Jim Colbert before him, and when Jim was trying to be the Muni King. Those guys just taught me about how good players see the game, and in a way that I really never achieved myself. So that was a valuable part of the education. So the general background informing those decisions is probably the biggest thing he gave me.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, see it through like a great player's eyes. They see things a little different than the average player would. So it stretches pretty long there. Did you play it right after it opened, or how many times do you think you'd played it?
Oh, I've probably been back and played a dozen times. Opening day, we got in about 12 holes before a pretty violent storm came in, so I had to wait a while to play the last 6 holes that you like so well.
Yeah. What a course. When was the last time you've been back, do you think? Is it 10 years or more than that or
No more than 10. At one time, it had come up for sale, and I just went out to take a look at it. I was with a group that thought they may want to buy it. They got outbid, of course, so when that came up, I mean, it wasn't long before the current owner took over the course. So, however long that is, that was the last time I was there.
if you want to play at Wild Wing or any other course in Myrtle Beach, you should be using Myrtle Beach Golf, powered by Golf Trek, best package company in the area. You can head to our website for prices, pictures, and reviews of every course. You can book over 100 different hotels and resorts. You can contact me directly, Parker Plays at yourgolfpackage.com. Would love to help you out on your next golf trip. So thanks again to Myrtle Beach Golf, powered by Golf Trek. And let's get back to the interview. Cool. I got you. Well, I know you designed around 50, 60 courses. How, that's a lot of courses. Can you remember like most of the holes at Wild Wing, or how does, I mean, I imagine that would be tough to still remember. You mentioned 6 and 17. Do you remember most of the holes or?
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me right offhand, you might see me counting on my fingers, but yeah, there's a lot of my favorites there. I mean, just for an example, like 7. Years ago, when I was an apprentice in Chicago, I went out and I designed some pretty typical Cape and Bay bunkers, and the superintendent came out and he simplified the bunkers, including leaving a little strip for the Sand Pro to exit. And I told him, well, that thing just looks like a pork chop. And he goes, yeah, that's what I wanted is a pork chop bunker. Well, if you look at 7, Yeah, every few courses I would put in a pork chop bunker just to sort of as homage to my experience there.
Just
And
to keep.
that's the other side. It's just a little different. It's too easy to get into the same bunkers, the same style, same size greens, and eventually my design theory came to be sort of eclectic. I figured if the same guy was in charge, there'd be enough repetitive elements that it was possible to go out and you know follow up a standard size bunker with a huge bunker like there is, and then you go to 8 and it's just pot bunkers. And so I was always trying to contrast the visual look. I trained as a landscape architect. I was an average golfer. Again, I sort of designed what I liked, really pretty. Uh, they probably were a little more difficult than I intended, but and as I got older, golf got harder for me, and I started making them even easier towards the end of my career. But
There's nothing wrong with that. I think some courses are just too penal. I mean, the average player shooting over 100, you don't need to beat them up that much. But all those mounding, you mentioned all the mounding there at Wild Wings, really cool feature. Did y'all? I know Myrtle Beach is pretty much dead flat, so y'all dug up the ponds, irrigation ponds, and transferred all the soil and built those mounds. Is that how you did all that, or?
yeah, it was all a balance on site, and again, if this is too technical, you can edit it out. But Willard moved like 600,000 yards of dirt. Again, being a traditional architect, he didn't believe in catch basins in the fairway. So he had to raise all of his fairways, 3 or 4 feet, and then slope them to drain. So we took a different approach. You're familiar with the fifth hole. Well, the entire Avocet course drains to that outlet right in front of the tee. And the lakes that stretched through the property allowed us to lower the water table. So instead of filling the fairways 3 feet, we'd put the catch basins right at existing grade or up 6 inches, and then just kind of filled the hills in between. So we moved like 475,000 yards of dirt, but because we were willing to put catch basins in the fairway, you know, we got more visual effect out of it than Willard had ever done.
Is a catch basin, is that just basically like drainage, or I'm not
Yeah, just a
familiar with that?
drainage inlet with a grate. I never minded, putting them in the fairways. I mean, I understand the theory. Many architects hate that, and you sure try to avoid the main landing areas. But it allowed us to get more visual effect. And all the years I played golf, I may have only had a ball end up on a catch basin maybe 3 or 4 times. So never bothered me as much as it did some architects.
Yeah, I don't mind that. Cool. Well, great course at Wild Wing. Did you play any other courses in Myrtle while you're here? I know you're probably busy designing, but did you check any of the other designs here? I mean, that early 90s was kind of the boom here. They were building them
Yeah.
left and right, right?
Yeah, we did try to get around to several of them, especially those done by the bigger names, see what was going on. Good, it's a great place to see what's going on in the business trend wise, at least then. And so, yeah, Paulie's Plantation and then, several of those courses we did go out and play.
I think Kings North was probably open by then. It's pretty much right next door to the Arnold Palmer design.
Yeah, yeah, of course that was easy to get out there. So, yeah, you're always looking. I think every architect, they like to tell you it's the original idea they had, but again, we'd go in and if you went to Scotland or something and played golf or played a Oakmont or a Baltusrol or something like that, you'd come back to the project and say, well, I saw a cool idea. Maybe we'll drop this one if we haven't decided exactly what to do on this, that, or the other green. You're always looking for good ideas that fit what you're trying to do, not to copy exactly, but you've got to recognize the situations that make a certain bunker placement or whatever a good fit for your hole.
Cool. Well, the greens there, that's pretty much, besides like the drivable hole and the cool stretch there, but the greens really stick out to me. All the undulation 3 and 4, and just the big ridges on 8, I think has one. How does walk? Do you do that on like how? Walk us through how you're grading those huge slopes. I mean, some of those ridges are about 5+ feet tall. Is that how long
Right.
would it take to like build a green, and how do you mold it out like that?
Well, I mean the greens are pretty much shaped in a day or two. I do remember, They got behind schedule because of rain. I actually spent Memorial Day weekend out there 4 or 5 days in a row, and the contractor had brought in four shapers to, catch up. And it was a fun day. I just got to, keep going around the circle and working at 4 or 5 different greens at a time to approve them and get them ready for irrigation. Um, Again, as far as the green designs, yeah, 8 probably got a little steep, although again, short par 3, it probably fits there. The historic inspirations, I think it's gone now, but 9 was based on the Valley of Sin, St. Andrews 18, and a few other ideas. Now the guys I work for, they loved double deck greens. You know, Larry seemed to think about 4 of them was about right, and another one of those interesting stories. You've gone back to 14 a few times. That we had a press day and they were asking questions, and of course that's probably got the most noticeable humps in the middle of it. Kind of 3 fairways and 2 big sections of the green divided by a hump.
Hmm.
But the press clearly didn't like that, and I couldn't quite come up with an answer. And Larry stepped in, and he says, "Well, it's a lot like the green I when I won at Oakmont. It was a lot like a green they had out there. Then they all went from shaking their heads no to shaking their heads yes. So that's the
He,
power of celebrity opinions, I guess."
the tour pro, yeah, he shut him up quick. Cool. Well, yeah, I mean, how is it working with him? He's a Ryder Cup, 3-time Ryder Cup, 3-time major winner. Like, are you still in touch with him at all today, or how was y'all's relationship through it?
Yeah, we talk every so often. I mean, he had a lead there in Atlanta. Yeah, I don't think he's been doing too much architecture, but he gave me a call. It didn't end up working out, but we had a great chit chat. So we're still good friends.
Cool. Cool. Is there any projects you're currently working on, or what's going on with you in, nowadays, 2025?
Yeah, well, a few years ago, I hit retirement age and decided I was going to shut the business down. Got tired of the chase, and I'm a big fan of the next generation of architects. But at the same time, I've been a member of the American Society of Golf Course Architects for forever, and they came up with this job position of director of outreach. They wanted somebody who understood the profession on staff. So I took that position. It wasn't quite ready to retire. So it's a great way. I'm really having fun with it. I mean, mostly it's like, well, so let me get this straight. You're going to pay me to sit around and talk to all my old friends in the business. You go, yeah, pretty much. I've also done other things. I work on their education committee, and I'm trying to recruit, the next generation of architects and things like that. But so for the last three years, I've been doing that, and
Just
like I say, it's been great for me.
just kind of like a little consulting business, or is that how you
Yeah,
describe it? Or
yeah. That's like I say, it's an interesting deal. Retirement. May have been retired for a month or two. I didn't actually like it. Got enough energy to do something. But after you announce you might retire as a golf course architect, the phone calls stop coming. People find out in a hurry.
Well, you mentioned some of the new architects. Who do you like nowadays?
You know, I like most of them. Kyle France has become a good friend. He does some great work. I visited him. He's doing a course down in Luling, Texas, so I drove down to see that. And Tyler Ray's doing great, and I could keep going. It's like the Academy Awards, though. I don't want to leave anybody out, so I'll stop there on the list. But there's it's just a ton of talent out there, pretty much like I was at age 22 when I came out of college. A lot of passion there, and then also one thing I love about golf is it's the lowest percentage of scoundrels I think in golf of any profession you could probably find. Just everybody's a pretty high class person.
Cool. Yeah, I love some of the new designers. I mean, no new courses have been built here recently. I would love that. I think it's kind of a pipe dream, but man, if there was ever an opportunity, I think that could be. There's room for more courses here, but that's kind of a long way, probably a long shot. But think that was most of my questions. I appreciate your time. Where can the people find you? And are you active on social media, or do you have a website or anything? Or
Well, those things I've think have shut down, but my email's jeff@asgca.org, and I do take random questions not only from my members and other architects, but sometimes we get the public emailing in with a question. I may get one on this, so usually in the phrase, you were nice about it, but usually what I hear is, so why in the blah 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 blankety blank did you do that? Not why did you do that?
Yeah, appreciate you. You emailed me back right away, so that was nice of you taking out time early in the morning. I'm hoping to get on. I've been in contact with PB Dye and also
Mhm.
Tim Kate. So are you? I'm sure you know them as well, huh?
Absolutely. Well, part of my job is putting people together, so I will email them right after we get off here and tell them we got a podcaster in Myrtle Beach who wants to talk to you.
I've had responses from both of them. Mr. Dye hasn't replied recently. I don't know. I'm hoping to get him on, but I think I definitely Mr. Kate will be on in the next couple weeks. So trying to, is there any other architects in Myrtle that you would suggest I reach out to? I know, a lot of the courses were built in the 80s and 90s, so a lot of the architects are kind of aging out. A few of them have passed away, but is there anyone else that rings a bell that maybe I should reach out to?
Well, I'd have to go back and check the Myrtle Beach course list, but I can get back to you with that.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it's great what you're doing is recording some of the history, some of the small stories, that come out that the public maybe doesn't understand. So I think it's a great service, and yeah, the aging out. I'm glad you got to me before the inevitable, but
No, no, sir, not you. But yeah, that was cool. I mean, Myrtle Beach is a great area, so maybe you'll come back sometime and check it out. So I do thank you again for taking the time. Any final messages you wanted to before we hang it up here?
well, I mean, among the other memories down there is it was things were so busy back then. I turned down a few jobs that didn't have direct flights, and of course, I always had to connect through Charlotte or something, Raleigh. And I was probably the only sober guy on the plane, going to Myrtle Beach because I was going to work and those guys were starting the vacation early. So,
Uh-huh.
but oddly enough, if you listen to the conversations, you kind of learn what the Myrtle Beach golfer, wanted and didn't want. So, again, you're always trying to learn. So,
That's good insight. Which courses did you had interest in you? Which other ones were you looking at?
well, again, like the Polly's Plantation was the biggest one I remember, and one of those holes I think. And I think Pete had done that, but they kind of carved through the middle and kind of just a very narrow vision slot to the green. So
13.
again, I felt that those kind of features would appeal in Myrtle Beach. So I would go and look at individual features again, not to copy them exactly, but to see if there was a fit conceptually to what I was trying to do, and there was.
Yeah, I think you're talking about like 13 and 17, the stretch right there on the marsh on the back. That's great. That's one of the top courses here. Did Nicholas do that pretty much himself, or I imagine a lot of his team probably does the work, huh? He probably
Yeah,
visited a few
yeah. He
times.
over the years he's assembled, great Jay Morrish and Bob Cupp. I think were his first two. I actually had a letter ready to go because I'm working with a kind of a middle class architect, and for some reason I never sent it. Uh, would have been interesting alternate reality to see what would happen if I was working for Jack Nicklaus, but he's had great people over the years, and it's mostly a team. And a couple of my guys quit me and went to work for him, and they will say Jack does understand architecture. I mean, you don't necessarily need a landscape architecture degree. I mean, obviously, he probably looks at it as the player. There's an old saying that players look at a hole in terms of shots, architects look at it in terms of the look and the visuals. And again, I think part of the success of Wild Wing and some other courses was, yeah, Larry looked at it from shots and I looked at it from visuals. So,
Yeah, I've played a few Nicklaus courses. There's couple holes you get to and a couple approaches, and you're like, Jack Nicklaus is the only person that can pull this off. Like, this is this is a little much. So I like that you had both the designer and the player philosophy at Wild Wing. I think it turned out great. I look forward to every chance I get to play there. One of my, I mean, most of the rankings and publications probably have it around like 10th to 20th in Myrtle Beach, but I'm just calling it a top five course in the area.
Well, I like you. I knew there was something about you I liked, but yeah, well, it was a great opportunity for me. Like I say, I call myself a middle class architect, and I think that and Opryland, thanks to Larry, of course, were two of the bigger opportunities. I got into big resort markets, and certainly didn't want to, blow my opportunity. So I thought we put a lot of effort in it, and I thought it came out pretty well.
You did a great job, and appreciate your time. I think we'll sign it off. Thanks again, and we'll catch you later. Thank you, sir, and have a great day. Thanks for
Yeah.
watching, everybody.
Well, if you
Take
need me
care
to
now.
put together with some of those others for your podcast, I'll be glad to help you.
That's nice of you. Thank you. I'll probably be in touch via email, and this will be posted in a week or so.
All right. All right.
All right. Thanks,
Have a
sir.
good
Have a
weekend.
great day.
Thanks.